What's up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another episode of Go Talk with Marcus, presented by the Give Us a Shot Network. Tonight, I'm flying solo, talking all things WNBA basketball. Aliyah Boston and Haley Jones have looked great this week. Satu Sabli and Enrique Gumbawale have the Dallas Wings looking like legit title contenders. Yes, title contenders in the WNBA. And there's one player in particular in the WNBA that deserves a lot of praise. Going to talk about all that and so much more next on Go Talk with Marcus.
Give them a shot to do what?
What's up, everybody? Hope you all had an amazing day. It's Friday. Father's Day is this weekend. Shout out to all the OGs out there. So much to talk about. The one thing I do want to talk about, though, before we jump into the WNBA, and I promise this will be a WNBA pod, but just want to talk about it because it was breaking news today. The NBA announced that Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies will be suspended for 25 games as a result of yet another incident with him waving a gun on Instagram Live. And there's been a lot of mixed reaction, a lot of mixed response about, was it too much? Was it slap on a wrist? Is he going to learn this lesson this way? And here's the thing that's really important. I think 25 games is perfectly fine. And here's why. You guys remember a couple months ago, the NBA announced the new CBA, the new collective bargaining agreement that kicks in next offseason or next season. So the season that's coming up. What is the biggest part about that CBA is there is now a game requirement for awards. There's now a game requirement for all league teams. So if you want to be all NBA first, second, or third, if you want to be all defense first or second, if you want to be all rookie first or second, you want to be rookie of the year, you want to be MVP, defensive player of the year, sixth man of the year, most improved, all that stuff, you have to play at least 65 games in order to be considered for those awards and those accolades. What's 82 minus 25? 57. So what this means is not only is Ja Morant going to be losing money for the 25 games he's played because he'll be suspended unpaid, he's also going to lose potential money because he's not going to be able to make those all-league teams. He's not going to be able to be eligible for winning an award if he had a phenomenal season, an MVP caliber type season. Maybe he stepped it up defensively and is in the defensive player of the year conversation. Maybe whatever it is, he's not in the discussion for that. And what else does that mean? He's also losing money that way as well because, for you guys that don't know, NBA players, they have incentives in their contracts. They have brackets. If you're an all-league defender, you get this much more added. If you're an all-NBA player, you get this much added. You get such and such MVP votes, this, that, and the third. So the 25 games, while it seems like it's not a lot in the face value because it's 25 games, he's being cost a lot of money. He's losing out on a lot of money, not just from being suspended without pay, but because all the money that he could get having been a first or second team all-league player, potentially maybe winning an MVP or something like that, he can't get the money for that from his contract incentives because he's now not eligible to have those things. So I think the 25 is just fine. I think it makes perfect sense. You got to suspend him enough games where at the very least he can't be eligible for those awards, and it makes perfect sense. The other thing too is he released a statement very similar to the statement he released the first time around, simply saying, addressing his fans, saying, all you kids out there that view me as a role model, I apologize for my actions. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Ja Morant, we're at the point with Ja Morant where his words mean nothing now because he said this the first time around, and he came around just a couple months later, maybe 1 or 2 months later, to the exact same thing. At this point, Ja Morant's words, as it pertains to his remorse, as it pertains to how he feels about the situation, means absolutely nothing. Am I saying that Ja Morant doesn't feel this type of remorse? No, I'm not saying that. Am I saying that his apology means nothing? No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is you cannot do the same thing twice in a row, give us the same apology twice in a row, and expect us to believe it twice in a row. What's still saying? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you, or however it goes. That is where we're at with Ja Morant. So his words don't mean anything, and the 25-game suspension, I think, is apropos, makes perfect sense. Now, let's jump into some women's basketball. There's a lot to talk about, and I want to start with the Indiana Fever. The Indiana Fever obviously drafted Aliyah Boston first overall, and they have slowly but surely figured out how to piece this thing together to look like a competitive basketball team, right? Aliyah Boston, so far through the first, I believe she's played 10 games. Through the first 10 games of her career, she's averaging 15-8 with almost a block, shooting 66% from the field, 74% from the free throw line. She's playing good basketball. She was already named Rookie of the Month last month. I expect her to be named Rookie of the Month pretty much about every month until the end of the season, where she ultimately ends up being this year's Rookie of the Year. The one thing that I would love to see the Fever do, and I think this can be the difference between the Fever picking the lottery again and making the playoffs, is being able to finish those close games. We have seen the Fever come up short time and time again. Now, this week has been a good week for the Fever. They had a strong win against the Mystics on Tuesday. They won by 21 points. I believe there was their first 20-point victory in a couple of seasons. Really good win. And then they followed that up, I believe, last night with a close 2-point win over the Chicago Sky. They won that game 92-90. So they are figuring out a way to piece these things together. And if they can continue to do that, it's a long season, but if they can continue to piece these close games together and figure out a way to close it out, we could be looking at the Indiana Fever in the playoffs, right? When you think back to a game, the game they had against the Mercury, Phoenix Mercury, they lost that game 85-82. And one of the tough things about that game was they could not figure out a way to piece the win together down the stretch. In that fourth quarter, Aliyah Boston was not getting the ball. The offense became very anemic. The defense wasn't clicking the way that it should have been, the way it had been over the course of that game. And then they followed that with 2 big wins against 2 good basketball teams in their conference. A blowout win over the Mystics, who we all know how I feel about the Mystics, and then a very close win over the Chicago Sky, a team that, despite having lost some key pieces in Candace Parker and in Courtney Vandersloot, are now only 5-6. They started the season 5-5, and they've been playing good basketball. So Aliyah Boston's been playing amazing, but the Indiana Fever, if they can figure out a way to piece these close games together and not lose these big leads, or continue to have that fighting spirit to continue to fight back in these basketball games, I think we could be looking at the Indiana Fever as a potential playoff team this season. They're sitting at 4-6 right now. We've got a long season to go, so anything can happen. Let's talk now about the team that's directly above them in the standings at 4-5. That's the Atlanta Dream. Another young team that's trying to piece things together. The Dream, in their own right, had a massive win this week. They beat the Liberty. The Liberty that we all think could potentially make it to and win a championship over the Las Vegas Aces. They got to win on the road against New York Liberty 86-79. Now, I understand Sabrina Ionescu did not play in that game, but the key thing about that game is Breanna Stewart in that game was held to just 12 points. She had 13 boards and 6 assists, but she only had 12 points. Jonquel Jones also only had 12 points. Breanna Stewart was 1 of 14 from the field. Jonquel Jones was 4 of 9 from the field. They were able defensively. That was the best defensive game we saw from the Atlanta Dream to this point in the season. It was a great win for them on the road against a championship caliber basketball team. What they do? They followed up last night with another big win against the Connecticut Sun, who are 8-3 right now. The team that the Aces beat in the WNBA Finals just last season. They went, I believe, on the road again in that game and got the job done there. Haley Jones played a phenomenal game in that game against the Liberty. She had 13-9 in Tuesday's win over the Liberty. But the unsung hero for the Atlanta Dream at this point in the season, it's got to be Alicia Gray. She's been playing amazing. She's averaging 18.6 boards with 3 assists, shooting 47-36 from 3 and 85 from the line. She has been unbelievable. You also have to give some credit and show some love to Rhyne Howard, the second-year guard. She's averaging 16-5. Shooting's not that great. She's only shooting 39% of the field, 33% from 3, 71% from the free throw line, but she's still coming into her own as a second-year player and the cornerstone piece for this Atlanta Dream basketball team. Do I think that we can start to see them as well piece things together down the stretch and become competitive? Absolutely, because they have the defense for it. They have players that are versatile from the 1 to the 5 that can guard just about every position, and you can flip-flop who goes where and who guards where, and it makes them a very versatile basketball team, as we saw in that win on Tuesday against the Liberty. So the defensive consistency is going to be the key for them moving forward, because offensively, I don't know if we've seen yet the Atlanta Dream prove so, and it's a young season. They only played 9 games, but I don't think we've seen the Dream yet so far this season prove that they can go toe-to-toe offensively with a team like the Liberty, offensively with a team like the Aces, offensively with a team like the Dallas Wings or even the Washington Mystics when they're clicking. Now, again, I know they beat the Liberty, but they beat the Liberty because of the defense. They were able to keep Breonna Stewart in check, and she is arguably the best player in the league right now. That's a very, very, very hard thing to do. To keep Breonna Stewart, what was it, 1 for 14 from the field, just 12 points. That is a feat in and of itself. And you know me, I don't believe in moral victories, but that is huge, and the cherry on top of what was a big win on the road against a championship caliber basketball team, despite the fact that they were missing Sabrina Ionescu. The Atlanta Dream go as their defense goes, and they have played some really strong defense in a couple of these games. If we can get some defensive consistency from the Atlanta Dream, this is a team that likes to run, that likes to push the pace, that likes to get out in transition and hit those open shots and hit you in the mouth in the paint in transition. That all stems from what? Their defense. So the more consistently they play that defense, the more they can get out in transition, the more they can hit those open shots, and then you start to see your players like Haley Jones and your Alicia Grays and your Rhyne Howards of the world, they can start to click and they can start to move faster, get into their groove. And now we could be talking about the Dream as a playoff team. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but defensive consistency is going to be the key for the Atlanta Dream moving forward. There is one team, though, that I think without a shadow of a doubt is absolutely going to make the playoffs this season. And I'm going to take it a step further. I think this team could go all the way, and I think they can make it to the WNBA Finals this season, and that is the Dallas Wings. Right now, I know that sounds crazy when you think about who you have to go through in the West to get there, and that is none other than the reigning, defending WNBA champion Las Vegas Aces. I get it. They're stacked. You've got Candace Parker. You've got Alicia Clark. You've got Asia Wilson. You have Jackie Young. You've got Kelsey Plum. You've got Chelsea Gray. So much talent on this roster. I understand. It's crazy to think that there's any team in the WNBA East or West that could get past the Aces and get to a championship. But you got to go through Las Vegas. If there's one team right now, specifically in the West, that I think can make some noise and potentially knock the Aces off in the series, it's the Dallas Wings. It's because of what we've seen from Satou Sabally. Satou Sabally so far this season is having a career year. She's averaging 21 points with 11 boards. She has started off the season. They've played 8 games. She has 8 double-doubles. Number one, that's a franchise record for the most double-doubles consecutively for a player. If I'm not mistaken, she's in the top 5 or approaching the all-time record for most consecutive double-doubles to start off a season. I believe the record is 10 or 11, and she's approaching that. Satou Sabally, as I said when my guy Martin Stories on the show a couple weeks ago, Satou Sabally has proven this season so far. It's been very young, but she's proven not only that she's an MVP candidate, but at any given night, she can be the number one option on this basketball team, and she's proving every single night so far this season why the Dallas Wings have drafted her. But we cannot take away from what Arike Ogunbowale does, and we know who she is. She averages 22 and 4 with a steal and a half. Right? She is struggling from the field so far. She is struggling to shoot the ball so far. She's averaging like 32% from the field, 29% from 3. As the season progresses, I expect those numbers to get better. But the dynamic duo of Arike Ogunbowale and Satou Sabally could be the dynamic duo to knock off the Las Vegas Aces and keep the Aces from winning a championship. My one hesitation on just pushing all the chips to the middle of the table and cashing in and going all in on the Wings right now is the defense. Right? This is a team that any given night can explode from 3, can explode offensively. They've got great passers. As I've talked about before, their draft this season was amazing because they just got a bunch of hoopers that you can plug and play, and they all work out together. I can't wait to see Maddie Seegers continue to grow and develop and kind of find her own and where she fits in this whole thing. So I'm sure once she gets there, that'll be just another piece of this puzzle to getting them one step closer to potentially competing for a championship. But as of right now, the Dallas Wings are 100% a playoff team. And when you look at this, and when you look at what the Western Conference looks like right now, you can't deny that the Dallas Wings have to be considered the biggest threat to the Aces right now. I know what they have going out there in LA with the Sparks, and I think the Sparks are going to do great things, and they could also make some noise under Kurt Miller. I know you have obviously the Phoenix Mercury, who have started off the season relatively rough. They're 2-6 right now. I think they are really missing guard Skylar Diggins-Smith, who is out on maternity leave. The Mercury are struggling. The Storm are struggling, obviously, because of their losses that they've suffered, and the Lynx are struggling as well. There's only 3 teams in the West right now that really look like they have it going on, right? Fortunately for those other 3 teams I mentioned, the Mercury, the Lynx, and the Storm, someone's got to make it because it's 4 teams in each conference. So one of those 3 is going to make it. If I had to put money on it, I would say it's going to be the Mercury. But when you look at the Wings and you look at the Sparks, the one thing where I would give the edge to the Sparks overall, if those 2 teams would face off in the series, is they've got the experience, right? You've got Nneka Ogwumike, who one of the best players in the league, former MVP. You've got Chinea Gumake, her sister, veteran, really reliable player. They've got De'Erica Hamby, who is one of the better utility players in the league, if not the best utility player in the league. She had an amazing game the other night, going off for 23 points, and I believe she had 8 boards or something like that as well. An amazing game for her. So right now, because of what the Sparks bring to the table defensively, because they have a lot more versatility, if the Wings and the Sparks were to face off in a series, I would give the edge to the Sparks. But what the Wings have and what the Sparks don't have is consistent offensive production from their players at the top. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Sparks have been dealing with some injury. Neka's missed a game here or there. I believe Chinea's missed a game here or there as well. And they're still kind of trying to figure it out and kind of piece it all together. And I have no doubt that they will. I think they absolutely will. And as I said on the very first episode of the WNBA for this season, I do think that the Sparks can be a team to be reckoned with. And again, could potentially make some noise in the league. But as of right now, I've just been slightly more impressed with what I've seen from the Dallas Wings, specifically what I've seen from Satou Sabally and her ability to make an impact immediately this season and force herself into the MVP conversation so far. Now, there's one player that we have to show a lot of love to, and I'm not showing her love because she plays for my favorite team, the Aces. I'm showing her love because she deserves it. Jackie Young. Jackie Young so far this season, as myself and Martin have alluded to, has been an MVP candidate this season. But here's the thing that you have to love about Jackie Young. It's not just the fact that every season from a points standpoint, she's gotten better. It's not just the fact that overall across the board, she's having a career season. It's the fact that she's shooting 60% from the field, but more importantly, she's shooting 48% from three. She's shooting 80% from the line. That 48% from three. There was a time not so long ago, and by not so long ago, I mean in 2021, when she shot 25% from three. She has improved her three-point shooting efficiency over the last 2 years by 23%. That is amazing. Now, a lot of that does have to do with we had the coaching change to Becky Hammon, and it's been a much more free-flowing offense, but we got to give credit to Jackie Young and what she's been able to accomplish. Her free throw shooting isn't exactly where it should be, where it used to be, at least I'll say that. She's usually over 80%. I have no doubt that she's there, but she's also shooting 60% from the field. Jackie Young right now is on pace to have the greatest shooting season in the history of the league from a percentage standpoint. She has the highest field goal percentage of players that have taken the number of shots that she's taken, which I believe is at least I believe right now it's at least 100 or 120, something like that. And she has the highest field goal or 3-point percentage so far of players that have taken at least 25 or 30 something 3-pointers. She's on pace to set a record for efficiency, and she's on pace to have the best season of her career, and rightfully so, because she deserves it. She has been the piece. She has been the factor. Now, the Aces are 9-1, and that one loss came to the Connecticut Sun. In a game where it was obvious that the Aces were sluggish. And I don't want to give out any excuses because you got to show up, you got to play basketball. But the Aces, if I'm not mistaken, they played like 4 games in 6 days. They played 3 games in 5 days, something like that. They were dragged, and they were going back and forth between home on the road and home on the road and home on the road again. But aside from that one game where the entire team just played bad, it wasn't just like it was one person. That entire team played bad. And the Sun played really good basketball. But Jackie Young, in 2023 so far, MVP candidate. Jackie Young, 2023 so far, on pace to have the greatest shooting season in the history of the league from a percentage standpoint. Jackie Young, so far in 2023, on pace for a career year across the board. It's not even just the percentages. We can take it a step further. She's on pace to average the most steals of her career. She's on pace to average the highest box score plus minus of her career. She's just playing really, really, really good basketball. You have to love it. You have to respect it. Not just as a fan of the Aces, but just in general. You have to love and respect what's happening with Jackie Young. That's my peak. Here's my valley. I got to give my valley to the Washington Mystics. And I'm giving my valley to the Washington Mystics, and they have a game against the Mercury they're playing right now. The reason why I'm giving my valley to the Washington Mystics is because something's missing from the Mystics so far this season. They're 5-4. They've had some ups and downs though. They there are some games where you look at them and like, wow, this is a team that can compete for a championship. They have some games where they come out there and you don't know what's going on. They had a game on Sunday against the Seattle Storm. They were up big. They're up really, really big, and they're up 20 if I'm not mistaken, and they blew that lead. Now, Atlanta Deladon didn't play that game, but when you look at who was on the floor, you had Natasha Cloud, you had Shakira Austin, you had Maisha Hines out. Like you had all your ladies. Aside from Atlanta Deladon, she's the best player on the team, so I know that matters, but you were up 20 without her. And this goes a lot to show, of course, how much of a strong fight the Storm put up, but also you can't give up a 20-point lead like that. They just forgot how to play basketball, it seemed. And when you look at the Mystics, they have these moments again where it's like, wow, this is a team that's one of the best in the league. This is a team that can compete for a championship. This is a team that I'd be confident saying this team could beat the Liberty in a series. This team could beat the Aces in a series. And then we have some moments, we have some games where you look at the Mystics and you just don't know what's going on. Something's not clicking. The defense isn't there. The offense isn't clicking. The ball isn't moving around the way that it should, the way that we're accustomed to seeing the ball move around in DC. And it's a difficult thing to figure out. It's a long season. I do anticipate they will figure it out. But here's the biggest concern. The Washington Mystics are no longer in a conference right now where they've got just one team to worry about. The Connecticut Sun, I will admit, I thought the Connecticut Sun would take a minor step back this season because they had lost Jonquel Jones and because Kurt Miller had taken the job in LA. But you look at what they've done so far. They're 8-3 are the Sun. They're second in the league overall as far as the record is concerned. They're the first in the East, right? Alyssa Thomas is playing great basketball. DeWanna Bonner is playing great basketball. DeWanna Bonner just last week went off for 40-some-odd plus points, set a franchise record, and was closing in on the all-time scoring record for a single game in WNBA history, which was set by Liz Cambridge a couple years ago, 53 points. They're playing great. Dejanay Carrington, playing great. Brianna Jones, playing great. The Sun are playing great. We expect the Liberty, as the season progresses, as Sabrina Ionescu obviously comes back from the injury, as Brianna Stewart continues to find her groove, as Jonquel Jones hopefully can find herself in this new system where she's now like the second or third option, as Marina Johannes gets back with her feet and gets things together, as Courtney Vandersloot continues to do the thing that she do from a facilitation standpoint, you have to think that the Liberty will take that top spot in the East that we all thought they would have coming into the season. The Washington Mystics so far right now are the third best team in the conference. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a playoff spot. Here's the problem though. I don't know if I'm confident enough to say right now that the Washington Mystics could beat the New York Liberty in a series. And I don't know so far through 9 games of the season if I can say that about them for the Sun as well. And I think that is concerning. And the reason why I think that's concerning is because the Sun and the Liberty bring two very different things to the table. The Sun are a grinded out basketball team. They're going to play defense from opening tip until the final whistle, and they do not give up. They're a sneaky basketball team that will not go down without a fight. You look at the Liberty, the complete opposite. They leave a lot to be desired defensively. They do have great individual defenders. Brianna Stewart, a phenomenal individual defender right now in the running for Defensive Player of the Year and MVP. Jonquel Jones, a great individual defender. But they can shoot the lights out of the building. Any building they go to, whether it's in Vegas, Connecticut, New York, whether it's in Washington, whether it's in LA, if they go to Dallas, if they go to Chicago, if they go to Atlanta, if they go to Indiana, if they go to Phoenix, if they go to Minnesota, or if they go to Seattle, they can shoot the lights out of the building. And defensively, we have seen so far instances when the Mystics can't handle that. Now, the Mystics made a statement opening game of the season. They had a home game against the Liberty, smacked them in the mouth, won by 20. That Mystics team, opening night, that Mystics team can win a championship. The Mystics team that we've seen the past couple games, even though they've won 2 of their last 3, the Mystics team that we've seen over the last 3 games is not a team I am confident in saying can win a championship. I'm just not. And I think the Mystics should be the team that if you look across the WNBA, you say, who's the team that can knock out the Liberty and keep them from making it to the finals? It should be the Mystics. Right now, it's not. Right now, it's the Sun. And I think that's a problem for the Mystics. Because if the Sun continue to keep this up, if they continue to be this not ragged, but they continue to be this rigid, tough to put down defensive basketball team with a bunch of dogs up and down the roster, which I think they can be, we're going to be looking at a tough spot if you're the Mystics, because the Mystics want to get back to that championship glory. They want to get back to the top of the mountain. And as I've said before, they have a lot to prove. Elena Del Don's got a lot to prove. Natasha Cloud's got a lot to prove. These ladies want to remind us all that they are still a team to be reckoned with and a force to be admired in the WNBA. So far through 9 games, we've seen moments where they have been. We've seen moments where they haven't been. And unfortunately, despite having 5 wins, they've had more moments of not being that, not setting that standard, than they have been showing that standard and being that force to be reckoned with. Do I think they can turn it around? Absolutely. Do I think they can be one of the best teams in the league? They already are. But I think they can be even better. Do I think they can make it to the finals this season? I think they've got a shot. I think they have a puncher's chance. Right now, though, I'm a little bit worried, and that's concerning to me. Players of the week. There's only 2. And they're the only 2 I think that really makes sense. Breanna Stewart of the Liberty, Satou Sabally of the Wings. I've spoken a lot of great things about Satou Sabally tonight and over the course of the season so far. I'm going to continue to do it because she deserves it. It's been a long journey for her to get here, and she's been healthy and she has been reliable. She's been an MVP candidate. Breanna Stewart, the Liberty have had some tough losses over the course of the season. They had a tough loss against the Dream earlier this week. But Breanna Stewart's still playing incredible basketball. Both of these ladies are leading their teams. Both of these ladies are doing things that you expect them to do and some. It's not just that they're meeting expectations. They're meeting expectations and then some, which is crazy to think about because, as I said, Breanna Stewart's one of the best players in the league. You look at what Breanna Stewart did this past week. She averaged 28.5 points a game, 9 boards, almost 4 blocks. Satou Sabally, 19 points per game, 12 boards, 1 steal. Both of these ladies have been playing incredible basketball. Both of the ladies have been leading their team to success so far, and it's been exciting. The WNBA is always exciting, but these 2 specifically have been very, very exciting. And before we get out of here, as always, there's 2 teams I have my eye on as we get into this next week and a half of the season. The first team, I talked about them already at the top of the show, the Indiana Fever. The Indiana Fever at one point were terrible, and they couldn't close out games. So far, twice this week against the names are failing me, against the Sky and against the Liberty, they have found a way to figure it out. The Mystics and the Mercury. They figured out a way to close games. That is going to be key because Aliyah Boston has transitioned seamlessly. And where Aliyah Boston goes, the rest of this team goes. That is what it means to be a South Carolina Gamecock. That's what she brings to the table, and she has been incredible. The Indiana Fever, if they can continue to figure out ways to close games, whether it's they're coming from behind or they have a lead and it's getting tight, they can be a team to be reckoned with, and they can continue their playoff trajectory. The other team that I'm on the lookout for is the Seattle Storm. They're 2-7, but Jewel Lloyd will not let this team go down without a fight ever. And at any given moment, if Jewel Lloyd has one of those games, this team is right back in the thick of things again. They're 2-7 right now. As I alluded to earlier, though, there's 4 teams that's going to make it from each conference. The Storm, the Lynx, and the Mercury. Right now, it's early, but they're all fighting for that 4th spot. The Lynx and the Storm are 2-7. The Mercury are 2-6. Whichever of those 3 teams figures it out first makes it to the playoffs. And I know earlier I said I got my money on the Mercury, but I'm not sleeping on the Storm, and I'm not sleeping on the Lynx. But I'm especially not sleeping on the Storm because Jewel Lloyd, we haven't talked about her enough this season because she's incredible. And I think a lot of the reason why we haven't talked about enough is because of the record. They're 2-7. If the Seattle Storm can figure out a way to make it to the playoffs, you have to, in my opinion, look at Jewel Lloyd as an MVP candidate. You have to. When you lose your best player, Breanna Stewart, to the New York Liberty, when you lose another key piece of your team of Sue Bird to retirement, and you somehow figure out a way, if you're Jewel Lloyd in the Seattle Storm, if you somehow figure out a way to make it to the playoffs this season, if Jewel Lloyd continues to play the basketball that we all know that she can play, and she is amazing, and she's great at what she does, if she continues to play this high-level basketball that she's playing, and it translates in enough wins to get them into the playoffs, I think we have to start taking Jewel Lloyd more seriously as an MVP candidate. She's averaging 24 points per game right now, which leads the league. She's shooting 39% from the field, 37% from three, 82% from the line. She's playing the best that she can. And those around her, they're filling it in when they can. But if the Storm can sneak into the playoffs, Jewel Lloyd, MVP conversation, might just be the MVP. We're not talking best player on the best team. We're not talking the player with the best narrative. We're just strictly saying Jewel Lloyd has been one of the better players in the league so far this season. And the only reason we haven't talked about it as much as we should have is because the Storm are 2-7. If the Storm were 7-2, if the Storm were 6-3, if the Storm were 500, 4-5 or 5-5, whatever. If they just had more wins on the resume so far this season, Jewel Lloyd will be getting so much more love in the MVP conversation. So I'm going to give it to her right now. Jewel Lloyd right now, despite the losing record, deserves to be in the MVP conversation. And if they can make the playoffs, she should be heavily considered as the MVP, especially if she keeps up what she's doing right now, which is leading the league in points per game. So there you have it. It is always fun to talk WNBA basketball. And as always, well, not tonight, but the next time we do this, my guy Martin should definitely be here. He went to go see The Flash tonight, and I hope it's a great movie. I'm going to go see it as well. Not today, but I'm going to go see it as well. So the next time we talk WNBA, Martin will be on the show. And the NBA Finals are over. So with an exception of the occasional WWE pay-per-view preview, this is all we got. Right here on Give Us a Shot Network, right here on Go Talk Marcus, all I have for you is the WNBA. I've said it once, I've said it twice, I've said it 1,000 times. If you don't like that, I don't know what to tell you. See you in September. You're a Neanderthal. That's perfectly fine. If you want to come onto the network and watch other content, which you should because we have a bunch of other content, you can head over to Give Us a Shot Network on YouTube or on Facebook. Subscribe. You can check out Burton, Journal Stuff About Sports. You can check out Mike and Corey with The Divide. You can check out JT and Don with the JT and Don All Sports Podcast, or you can check out the fellas at the High Spot Podcast. So much amazing content across the course of the network. It is truly a privilege, a pleasure, and an honor to be a part of such a talented group of individuals. And it's always a pleasure. So for Martin, who's not here, my guy Martin Soares of the Basketball Society, this is Marcus with Go Talk Marcus and the Give Us a Shot Network signing off. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys having a wonderful weekend. And to all you fathers out there, happy Father's Day. See you next week. You guys enjoy the rest of your lives.